country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's Pride.
America's song is indeed a song of freedom, as the Statue of Liberty depicts. A chorus of many voices, composed of unique struggles, victories, conflicts, and challenges, but brought together, united by a common chord of democratic ideals, inalienable human rights, and governance by, for, and of the people. The legacy of this nation is democracy. It is also diversity. Diversity and democracy. Together, these concepts challenge us to do what has never been done well, to evolve into a pluralistic society that respects and honors groups and ethnic identities, while it sustains an economic system that affords equitable access to opportunity and resources for all its citizens. Those who founded this nation knew that universal access to education was the key to realizing this dream. But many of our nation's youth do not have equal access to these educational keys. We cannot, as a nation, continue to prepare so many of our nation's youth for a future that excludes them from the economic and political mainstream, a future that mirrors a history and an academic curriculum that also excludes them. Hello, I am Gail Christopher, co-founder and a principal developer of the Americans All National Education Program. We have prepared this video to provide you with a comprehensive orientation to the Americans All resources and program. I will describe the components and share the educational philosophy, the research basis, and the conceptual framework. You will also see teachers as they practice using these resources during peer-to-peer training sessions and view classroom situations in which students are engaged in actually using the Americans All learning activities. As America's schools respond to today's imperatives and reform classroom curricula to reflect the diversity of our nation's school-age population, a major challenge arises. Is it possible to teach United States history as a history of diversity that includes the voices of all people? Is it possible to diversify the content of classroom resources and promote appreciation for self and others? Americans All answers yes to both of these questions. The Americans All program has proven that not only is it possible, it is preferable. By choosing to chronicle the history of 6 groups, Native Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans, European Americans, Mexican Americans, and Puerto Rican Americans, the program provides a frame upon which an inclusive approach to multicultural education on a nationwide basis can be built. The Americans All program has been developed by a collection of educators, business, and civic leaders to serve as a catalyst, that is, to speed up our national progress toward our ideals and national vision. We are committed to creating a pluralistic society that works for all people and to improving educational outcomes for students facing cultural barriers to success. Using the basic theme of migration and immigration, forced or voluntary, Americans All resources enable teachers to guide students through the diverse experiences of many groups of people. Carefully planned learning activities engage teachers and students in comparative, critical thinking about all groups simultaneously. These activities assure sensitivity to the previously untold stories of women, the working class, minority as well as majority groups. The program has been tested in the best laboratory, in classrooms in demographically diverse regions. By piloting this program in contrasting regions, we have learned lessons that helped us to develop materials and strategies that are flexible. People, families, and communities, this is what America is really. By integrating images and voices and information into classroom and homework assignments, we have helped thousands of students and their teachers and parents to develop a deeper appreciation for the history of this country as a history that has integrated the skills, talents, cultures, values, and knowledge of a wide range of people. We've accomplished this through a set of 25 classroom resources, along with teacher training and support. For ease of use and access, we have categorized these classroom materials into 5 essential components or groups. Let's look at the teacher resource and background information. 5 booklets are included in this group. First, I have written a brief teacher's manual called The Peopling of America. In it, you will find narrative information and graphics that tell the hidden story behind Americans all. Next, the great symbol of liberty, the Statue of Liberty, has a booklet that addresses its unique history and meaning. Charles Keeley's book, American Immigration, The Continuing Tradition, is the only resource of its kind available to K through 12 teachers. It provides a concise review of this country's immigration policies throughout the nation's history. Ellis Island in the east and Angel Island in the west were the 2 largest immigration stations in the country. These 2 islands for detention and processing serve as a watershed for a more general and comparative discussion of the continuing American tradition of diversity. But immigration, forced or voluntary, is still only one part of this nation's history. The Native American story, and to a large degree the African American story, is about conflict, resistance, and migration, forced primarily through and to lands within this country. These stories are also told. Some people have asked why we are focusing on only 6 ethnic and cultural groups. Our answer is quite simple, really. Using the theme of migration and immigration, we have determined which groups, numerically speaking, peopled or populated this nation during its birth and early years of growth and expansion, and captured their stories in these booklets. Each booklet provides a chronology of how that group of people migrated or immigrated by force or voluntarily through and to the United States. Information is provided that is generally unavailable in today's classrooms. Up to now, we've focused on the teacher resources and ethnic and cultural group background materials. These ethnic and cultural group booklets have provided basic information for developing a unique set of student materials and learning activities. These essays have been condensed and adapted to student essays for use in the primary, intermediate, and middle school grades. High school students, of course, can use the resource booklets. These essays may be duplicated for use with learning activities, which are found in the teacher's guides. The Americans All map book contains maps that relate to the migration and immigration experiences of the 6 groups, as well as relevant regional and world maps with suggestions for their use to help students achieve goals in the subject area of geography. The Americans All theme of the historic United States migration and immigration is ideal for promoting higher levels of geographic literacy. The map book, along with other Americans All resources, can help students develop map skills and concepts and gain personally relevant answers to the following questions. Where are things located? What makes a place special? What are the relationships among people and places? What are the patterns of movement of people, products, and information? How can the Earth and the United States be divided into regions for study? Finally, students have access to the Americans All timeline, The Peopling of America, a timeline of the 6 groups that historically helped to shape our nation. The Americans All timeline, along with its poster, can be used whenever historical events are discussed to remind students to consider multiple perspectives. Many suggestions are included to encourage critical and creative thinking. We've now reviewed 3 of the 5 basic components of the Americans All resources. In our next segment, we will see these materials being used by teachers and students.
Let's assume that you, as a classroom teacher, now have a set of Americans All materials. Using the teacher resources, we suggest that you begin with the climate, or classroom environment. We have found that classroom seating arrangements are important in establishing environments that validate and respond to the needs of diverse students. Any seating arrangement that promotes eye contact encourages the student's sense of belonging and connectedness, and thus fosters higher levels of support that facilitate feelings of value and competence. The key to effective use of the Americans All materials is to foster classroom climates that encourage discussion, critical and creative thinking, and peer group participation. Such environments may help to promote students' success by reducing their stress levels and responding to their intrinsic motivational and affective needs. Students need to have a sense of security, opportunities for self-expression, and a sense of empowerment. The following methods are suggested in the teacher's manual as techniques for creating classroom environments that respond to these needs. Students form small groups and express their ideas in response to questions or problems. Students work in small groups of 3 to 7, and everyone is given the opportunity to discuss the appointed topic or problem. Students create and enact scenarios based on given information or ideas. The entire class focuses on one topic, and the teacher facilitator's job is to keep the discussion lively and inclusive of as many students as possible. This method also allows students to focus on one topic, but an appointed student leader asks questions. Partners, teams, and small groups of 3 are very good when new material is introduced. It is important to display contemporary images of diversity along with the historical ones. The most important resource for any teacher using the Americans All program is the Teacher's Guide. Use the Teacher's Guides to pull all the resources together and make them compatible with your curricular or subject area objectives. There are approximately 12 learning activities for each level and a set of generic activities which help teachers and students create an appropriate climate for multicultural development and positive peer relationships to help develop character and values. Most of the learning activities listed above call for the use of the following Americans All resources: photographs, timeline, map book, People of America book, slides, posters, music, and tapes. The Americans All simulation book provides a detailed set of resources, a kit complete with role-play cards, play money, and language cues for simulating the Ellis Island immigration experience. The Americans All photographs and images are the heart of the 5th and final of the 5 essential components in the Americans All resources. The images in the photographs and slides are the same. These images help students see history with a human face and subsequently to relate to the experiences of diverse groups in specific periods. These same images have been incorporated in the Americans All poster collection. The photograph collection has its own guide as well. Each section of the photograph collection contains previewing activities, viewing activities, scripts or narratives that accompany the images and/or information on the source, time period, and identities, where possible, of persons in the photographs. This information correlates with information found on the back of each photograph. The Americans All music tape and accompanying book of scores and information contain folk songs that relate to the immigration and migration experience of these diverse groups. Teachers are encouraged to use Americans All resources to make language skills more accessible to diverse students. In actual classroom use, Americans All resources come to life in students' hands and have had profound impacts on their perceptions about teachers and others. By using images, music, maps, and narratives, students can create journals and logs and write their own stories and books to help make their reading and writing activities have more personal and cultural relevance.
A key aspect of the Americans All program philosophy is our approach to meeting students' affective needs and supporting their intrinsic motivation for learning, as we explore and model in the generic learning activity shown in this classroom scene. The teacher helps students improve their communication skills. This activity is called Communication Stoppers.
In order for someone to be an effective leader, they really have to communicate. Can you give me some examples of how you communicate what you're thinking to someone? What ways could you get your point across to a person? Marcia?
Write it down.
You could write it down. You could give someone written information. Very good. Janet? Talk. Very good. Becky?
Facial expressions.
Facial expressions. You can allow someone to know. You remember a specific time when you wanted to tell somebody something? You had a story to tell your mom. You wanted to tell somebody about a test. Can anybody remember a specific time? How many people ever want to talk to a teacher about a grade and were confused about a grade? That type of thing. And I want to break up in 2s or 3s in this case and try to come up with an idea, a time or a story when you thought you had a communication to get across and couldn't do it. So how about if we turn and face one another and start kicking that around among one another? And what I'm going to do in about 2 minutes, I'm going to ask one group to tell me, to give me an idea or give me an example of a communication that you try to do in your personal life that someone wasn't listening to, whether it would be a friend, a parent, a teacher. Teachers have a habit of not listening. So, okay, I'll give you 2 minutes as to right now. Maybe 1 or 2 groups. Who can tell me, who came up with a time when you find you're speaking to someone was really difficult, you couldn't get your point across? Who can give us an example?
So, what did you do this weekend?
Actually, my family and I went to a picnic. We had this really great lunch, and afterwards we got to play a game of baseball. My dad was so funny. You know, he couldn't hit the ball. He couldn't even hit the ball. So, what did you do this weekend?
What did you say?
What did you do?
That's it.
Okay, what communication stoppers were shown in this little exercise?
Intrinsic motivation is nurtured when students' affective needs for a sense of security, their opportunities for self-expression, and their perceptions of empowerment are addressed. Americans All classrooms respond to these concrete student needs in multiple ways: the peer and group interaction, identity validation, cultural affirmation, shared learnings, journal writings are all designed to promote learning environments that help build student self-concepts and self-esteem, thereby heightening motivation and academic success. In these classroom scenes, students work together and share ideas and information about ethnic groups. The activity is called People Count, which can be adapted for grades 3 through 12.
And so we're going to talk about 6 main groups who immigrated to the United States. And what we're going to do is I'm going to break you up into groups. I want you to read the information, and then we're going to come back together. And what you're going to do is report to us on the group that you've read about. You're going to tell us, why did they come here? What caused them to pick up and leave their own country? Did they come because they wanted to come, or did they come because they were forced to come? Were there reasons within their own country that forced them to come? Also, we're going to look at the difficulties that they encountered. You're going to find out in some of these articles that you read that the United States government actually legislated against some of these groups, and I want you to look for that information. And then the most important of all is, what have these groups contributed to the United States to make it what it is today? So I'm going to list the questions on the board. I'm going to give you the materials, and then as you read through it, you can simply mark on your sheets numbers 1, 2, and 3 so that you can refer back to it when we get back together as a large group and talk about these different questions. It's easier. All right, let's call time and see what kind of information we have. Any group want to go first? All right, Native Americans. First of all, why did they come?
Were they the first ones here?
Yes, that's what we believe,
So
yes.
They
They actually.
had no reason to come.
But interestingly enough, compared to your story, what did the Indians do?
They moved around a lot.
Yes, they moved around a lot. They migrated, right, okay. So why did they come? We could say they were here, but they did move from place to place. All right, good. What problems did they encounter? These Native Americans. War and diseases. Now, where did the diseases come from? Yes, and once again we go back to those Europeans who came over to America, and they believed that when the European Americans came that they brought disease. What about the wars? The Native Americans were here first. Who were they having a war with? Why? What did the Europeans want? Yes, speak up. Good answer. They wanted the land, didn't they? And the Native Americans were migrating from place to place, but the European Americans were taking over more and more of the land.
In these classroom scenes, students are using an Americans All activity, family traditions. Notice their interest and motivation levels as they talk about their unique culture and families.
So do you have an idea of what family traditions would be? Okay, now what we're going to do is give you 2 handouts, 2 sheets of paper, that have family tradition questions on them. Now, you're not to keyboard the questions, but you're just to keyboard the answer. As an example, class, we just finished keyboarding several answers to the family traditions. And in responding to the family traditions, I'd like you to determine what you thought for answer number 2. Many of you answered number 2. What is the busiest room in the house and why? So let's have some of you respond to that question. Who would like to start? Yes.
The busiest room in our house is the kitchen because everybody's like always going in it, like either making something to eat or eating or going in and out the back door.
Another question was 32, and that question is, who in your family has told stories about the good times or the bad times?
My grandfather always talks about the Depression.
Yes, dear.
My dad, my mom too, always says how when they were little they didn't have what we had and were really lucky, and how they had to walk 10 miles to school through snow and rain and sleet and hail and stuff like that.
Any other family traditions? Yes, dear.
My dad always talks about the war because he escaped it from Cambodia, and he always talked about, a lot of people ask him how he got here, and how he, all the things that he did back then, and he always talks about that.
Care, success, harmony, and resilience are the antecedents or pillars of self-esteem. They make up one leg of our conceptual framework and are also intimately related to true multicultural development. A pluralistic society requires a high degree of multicultural development from all of us. Americans All Resources can support you as educators in this ongoing process. Calls for celebrating diversity move us to focus on the factors that unite us as American people as well. These are, to a great degree, the democratic ideals that we struggle to actualize. Americans All has included civics activities that help teachers and students to think critically about citizenship issues and our responsibilities and benefits of citizenship. When Americans All works best, it serves as a catalyst for shared experiences within communities and schools that promote awareness, appreciation, understanding, and commitment to our evolving challenges of democracy and diversity. We believe that the Americans All program can have a significant impact on attitudes and behaviors of our nation's youth. We are engaged in an ongoing evaluation and feedback process from teachers, administrators, parents, and students who are using the Americans All program within their local communities. Our mission has been and remains to deliver a set of resources that help to heal the present and move us as a nation toward a more unified, harmonious future.
I feel that it helped me more because it will show the destruction of self-esteem and how it will bring you down later on in life, and it'll show you what to look for and what not to do.
As a student, you get to learn about everyone and not just one group.
I feel good when I talk about my family because I'm grateful for the things they did, you know.
It felt good to know that there were many different cultures that contribute to America and that we're all, to me, we're all one.
Oh, if I know a lot about my past, then I know where I'm headed in the future.